Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. We're going to keep this upload streak going as long as we can. There probably won't be an After the Buzzer tomorrow, but I still want to drop another different form of video. I think I want to make like 5 players that have been impressive and 5 players that have disappointed through this first stretch of the season, some kind of video like that. If you want to see that, go ahead and comment down below and let me know what players have impressed and disappointed you up to this point so I can include some of them in that video. But for this video today, I won't be going as in depth on some of the games as I have in the past. I was gone basically the whole day away from my apartment at the New York City Enjoy Basketball event. If you don't know, that's a basketball brand that I work with, run by Kenny Beecham and his management guys. It's been super fun to do so. I got to meet a lot of y'all. Really great time if you were there. I appreciate it. So many of y'all showed me love. It was a great time, but because of it, I didn't get to catch as many of the games in detail as I wanted to, so I'll try and talk about as many as I can, but if I don't get to your favorite team, I'm sorry, and go ahead and let me know what I missed down below in the comment section. Let's go ahead and get right into it. As always, you can probably tell with the title and thumbnail of this video which team we're going to be talking about in particular, and that team is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got a big win over the Boston Celtics, who have been really good up to this point, outside of one loss to Chicago, which now makes back-to-back L's for them. We'll get to them later, but Cleveland has been one of the most impressive teams so far this season. There was one person who randomly in my comments called me a Cavs hater the other day, and that's just not true. The Cavaliers have just been dominant. I haven't had much to say because they've really been putting opponents away, and this feels like a game where I can really kind of rant about how great they've been, and I've been a believer in the Cavaliers. When I made my season predictions video, I put the Cavs as the 3 seed in the East, and a lot of y'all clowned me for that, saying, oh, they're not ready for this moment. You know, they'll be great one day, but not quite yet. But as soon as they made this move for Donovan Mitchell, to me, it felt like the Cavs were ready to compete amongst the best teams in the East. You know, maybe they're still not on the level of like the Milwaukee Bucks or, you know, maybe even the Celtics when they get fully healthy, but they're amongst that upper echelon of teams. They can compete with anyone in this league on any given night due to their depth and their star power, and both of those things really shine tonight. Their star power in particular with Donovan Mitchell and one of those supporting guys in Caris LeVert, who both dropped 41 points, the most points by a Cavs duo since LeBron and Kyrie in 2016 in the finals. And if you're put in the company of those two on one of their finals runs, you're probably in pretty great company. They were completely hooping tonight, ridiculously efficient, drilling threes, attacking the basket, mid-range jumper. Whatever you needed from those two guys, they were giving it to you tonight. It was incredible what they were doing against a great defensive squad in Boston. There was nothing they could do to stop them. Caris LeVert in particular was the big surprise in this one. He's been known for a little bit as kind of a Celtics killer. It feels like he always goes off against them, but this is a whole nother level. I wouldn't say LeVert's been disappointing since getting to Cleveland, but he hasn't quite been the player that I think they were hoping they would get. But this is one of those games that showcases his true potential with the squad. Having a guy like him who can just go off for 30 randomly goes a long way, and it really shows off the depth of this team. Donovan Mitchell can do it, Darius Garland can do it, Caris LeVert is a third guy that can go out and have a monster game for you if either of those guys are struggling, and that's huge for a team like the Cavaliers who are young. You know, say they get into a playoff run and Darius Garland's struggling because it's his first playoff run, he's having a couple miscues. You have a guy in LeVert who can back him up, put in some of that work as well. It goes a long way, and he's just one of those players that I feel like is kind of flying under the radar a bit. I know he's become really underrated by a ton of people. LeVert still has a ton of game, and he showed that off tonight against the Celtics in one of maybe the best performances of his career. I haven't checked what his career high is. This might be it, and if not, it's probably pretty dang close, and beating the current Eastern Conference champions on a night where you don't have one of your star players in Darius Garland, you probably have to put that up there amongst his best games he's ever had. But the real guy I want to focus on is Donovan Mitchell, who has been phenomenal. He's another guy that we've talked about, a lot of these early MVP candidates. He looks like another one of them. He's been incredible through this early stretch of the season. The Cavaliers, some of you may not know, haven't had their all-star point guard in Darius Garland since the first game where he got hurt against the Raptors, which was their sole loss of the season. With this win, they moved to 4-1 on the year, and they've been dominating teams, winning basically every game by double digits or just under it. They have looked incredible in this early going, despite not having an all-star guard in Garland, and Donovan Mitchell is the reason why. He has been showing off probably the best basketball of his career. He's shooting almost 50, 40, 90, averaging like 31 points a game. He looks locked in. He's being a leader. He's playmaking for others. And I think part of that has to do with this is the best team he's probably ever had around him. I know the Jazz were the 1 seed a couple years ago, but on that team, it was really just Donovan Mitchell as the scorer. They didn't have any other guys like, for example, a Karis LeVert or even a Darius Garland when he comes back who can help him out in that regard. If this was the Jazz, it would be like Donovan Mitchell putting up like 40, and then you'd have maybe like 18 from Mike Conley, 18 or 20 maybe from Bojan Bogdanovic. He can have a game here and there, but it's not going to be consistent. Having all these offensive weapons around him really helps him out. And alongside that, he's got defenders around him, guys like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen down low, who kind of can help take some of that pressure off him defensively too. This is a great squad for him. It gives him lob threats. He has defenders around him. He's got some shooters. He's got other guys that can step up and score. And I think all of that is alleviating a lot of pressure from Mitchell and kind of just letting him go out there and hoop. He feels rejuvenated. This really feels like one of the best stretches we've ever seen him play. And it's part of the reason why I'm so excited about this Cavs team. When you've got Mitchell playing like this, you've got Mobley and Allen putting up a double-double each on almost any given night, while being one of the most ferocious interior defending front courts we've seen in a while. This is going to be a really hard team to beat. And like I said, they are now 4-1 on the season, one of the best records in the NBA, without Darius Garland, who on a lot of nights could be their best player. It's just super impressive what they've done so far. If you told me that Garland was going to miss some time, I would have been like, oh, shoot. Maybe they're like 3-2 at this point, 2-3. But no, they have had guys that continue to step up, and their depth is great. They've got guys like Jetty Osman, who's been phenomenal, Dean Wade, Kevin Love, Robin Lopez has looked good so far. They've got guys that continue to step up for this squad, and that goes a long way too. They have depth, they've got star power, and they're winning, like I said, without one of their best players against a great team in Boston. When you can do that, I believe it really is a showcase of their strength. This Cavaliers team to me is legit, not just in the future, but in this season itself. All of these reasons are why I believed in them, and it's really cool to see all those things coming true. People still have concerns about how's the small backcourt going to work, but once again, I'm not worried when you have two defensive monsters down low. You've got a cast of great role players beside them. They have so much support around them too. It just feels like this Cavaliers team is really destined for greatness pretty soon, if not this season. It feels like people continue to sleep on them, and I feel like a lot of people, as they head into the playoffs, are going to be like, oh, they're still young, I don't really know how good they can be. To me, the Cavaliers feel like a genuine conference final sleeper team, and if they ended up there, I quite honestly would not be surprised. That's how good I think they can be when they get fully healthy. The wins that they're getting without Garland go a long way in my mind, and the Cavaliers are very dangerous, so if you're not taking them seriously, you probably should, or Donovan Mitchell is going to drop 40 on your favorite team. As for the Boston Celtics, they honestly really need Robert Williams back. They could not get stops tonight defensively. He's a guy that really contributes on that end, was one of the Defensive Player of the Year frontrunners last season alongside teammate Marcus Smart, who did win the award. Al Horford's doing his best, but they need more bigs. They had to play Luke Cornett extended minutes, and shout out to the Unicornet, but he's not really this high-level defender like a Robert Williams is. They've also been getting killed on the boards. They got almost doubled in offensive rebounds, and when you play teams like the Cavaliers, who have these two 7-footers down low, and you only have Al Horford and don't really have any other bigs. They were missing Grant Williams, who got suspended for running into a referee a couple games ago, serving that tonight, so he didn't play. They just didn't have the height really to match up. Jason Tatum played pretty well overall, but he cooled off towards the end. They needed some more buckets from him. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum did combine. I believe they each had 32 points. So they didn't play bad necessarily. Like, they put up like 130 points. It's just they couldn't get stops on the Cavaliers. Nothing they could do could slow Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert. It was kind of just one of those nights where they're both on a heater. They need the rebounding back. That is a big problem for them. And, it's easy to say it'll be solved when Robert Williams comes back, because it probably will. But until that point, and he might not be back till 2023, they've got to figure out a solution in the meantime. And, maybe it's a free agent, maybe it's a trade or something. But to me, it feels like they've got to make a move at some point, because I don't know if this is going to work. The other day, they made Nikola Vucevic look like Wilt Chamberlain. And if that's happening, you're in trouble. In some other games, we had Sixers versus Raptors tonight, where the 76ers got their second win of the season, avenging a loss that they had to Toronto just a couple days ago. And the whole reason they won was Tyrese Maxey. Maxey went went ballistic in this one. He was 9 of 9 shooting for 24 points to start the game. There was like 8 minutes left in the first half when he was at that stat line. And he ended up with 44 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists on 15 of 20 shooting, 9 of 12 from 3. He's the X factor for this team. I know Joel Embiid is going to give me numbers. I know James Harden is going to. But one of my big gripes with Philly early on, and part of the reason why I feel like they've been losing some of these games, is the offense that, well, first of all, the defense has really struggled, but offensively, they haven't involved Tyrese Maxey enough. When he's playing and getting touches, it's a completely different offense. There were so many times where he kind of gets frozen out. They kind of just like forget about him. He should be utilized so much more because we saw so much potential from him last season. In the preseason, he was going off. He feels destined to be one of the next young guard stars in this league. And there are some nights where they kind of just forget about him. Tonight, they let him cook. He took over and completely torched the Raptors. He was the reason they won. They need Tyrese Maxey to be involved more. And if they do, it can go a long way to the Sixers turning things around. On Toronto's side, they honestly just got cooked by Tyrese Maxey. Siakam still had a great game with 26, 10, and 6, but Van Vliet had just 1 point and shot like 0 for 11. So it just really wasn't their night. Fred VanVleet has really struggled this season, which I think has gotten overshadowed by Siakam's great play because he's looked like a top 10 player up to this point. Fred VanVleet's only averaging 13.3 points per game on 35% shooting. He's got to be better, and I'm sure he will be. He was just an all-star last season. Fred's going to figure things out, and when he does, it's going to make the Raptors a lot more dynamic. But tonight, if he's shooting like that, it's hard to win. Heading over to Suns versus Pelicans, the Pelicans put up a pretty good fight, but ended up losing to the Suns without Zion or Brandon Ingram. And to me, this was just another showcase of their depth, even in a loss. You had Najee Marshall, who just stepped into the starting lineup and put up 21, 6, and 5. You had 25 from Jonas Valanciunas, 17 and 9 from CJ McCollum. It's just such a deep squad they've got over there in New Orleans. Even though they lost this one, they kept it pretty close for a majority of the time, despite eventually losing by double digits. New Orleans is one of those squads that it feels like anybody can step into that starting lineup and really produce. They've got a great system over there. Willie Green is a phenomenal coach, and when Zion and Ingram get healthy, they're going to be one of the hardest teams to beat on any given night. On Phoenix's side, it's kind of a similar story. They've had really great depth this season, which to me was my biggest concern coming into the year, but it hasn't been a problem at all so far. Mikal Bridges, 27, 2, and 4. He looked phenomenal. One of his best offensive games we've seen in a while. Cam Johnson, 16, 2, and 3. Devin Booker only had to put up 16 points in a double-digit win. Bismack Biyombo had a double-double, continuing his great play from last season. Torrey Craig had 13, Campaign had 12, Jock Landale, who has been great for them so far, had 8. Like I said, it felt like the big concern from them was their depth. They don't have Jay Crowder. They're still looking for a trade for him, but it hasn't been a problem. Damian Lee, who didn't really play much in this one and didn't provide much when he did, hit a game winner for them earlier this season, had like a 12-point fourth quarter. They've just really had great play from guys who step in. And, maybe that's not sustainable. A lot of these guys feel like they're kind of playing a bit past what their expectations are, so maybe they come back down to earth, or maybe they're just kind of unlocking a lot of these guys. I still feel like they need to make moves, but up to this point, it feels like they're still in that championship contender tier. Then we had Spurs versus Bulls, where the Spurs came out with the dub, and in this one, they didn't have Devin Vassell, who has been phenomenal this season. Keldon Johnson stepped up. He had 33, 3, and 4. A lot of people's most improved player pick, and he completely showed out tonight. Jakob Poeltl continues to be one of the most underrated players in the league. He had 21 and 13. Like I said, no Devin Vassell, so they need scoring from elsewhere too. Jeremy Sohan had 13, 6, and 5. Blake Wesley played pretty solid in limited minutes. This Spurs young core is just stepping up in a lot of ways, and it's really cool to see. And then in other news, kind of the part of the reason why I really want to talk about the Spurs, Josh Primo just unexpectedly being waived. He was just selected in the lottery like last season. He's looked pretty good when he's played up to this point. He put out a statement through ESPN saying that there's some mental health things going on and he felt like he needed to step away from the team. There are a lot of things going on right now. We don't know the full story, but I felt like I should mention it here because I was completely stunned when I got that notification. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I thought there was some kind of typo. We'll see what happens with him. Maybe he gets picked up by another team at some point. Maybe there's some news that we haven't heard about yet. I'm not going to say really anything on the matter because I don't know what's going on necessarily, just that it was completely shocking when I got that. On the Bulls side, they really missed Zach LaVine's offense. DeMar DeRozan was really the only guy who could give them a lot of consistent scoring. He had 33 points, and he still looks like the all-NBA player we saw last season, which is great news for Bulls fans up to this point. They fall to 3-3 now with the L. Kobe White had a good game. He had 19 points. It felt like the first time he showed up in a while, kind of buried in that guard rotation behind like Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, and Lonzo Ball when he's healthy. But shout out to Kobe White for having a good game. Nikola Vucevic really struggled in this one. They need him to be better, but he just got completely outplayed by Andre Drummond in this one, who did have 17 and 14. He's looked great so far as a backup. Vooch has had some really great games so far this season, and some really mediocre games. He's kind of got to find that balance. If he doesn't, it's going to be a long season for him and Bulls fans. Hopefully he's able to kind of figure things out. And finally, just some couple notes. Trae and DeJounte Murray in a win over the Pistons combined for 62 points and 17 assists. They've really impressed me so far as a backcourt, moving to 4-1 on the season. Cade Cunningham on the other side had 35, 9, and 8. A lot of people were way overreacting to his start of the season. He started slow, kind of similar to how he did last year, but I think a lot of people expected him to just explode onto the scene right out of the gate because he was people's most improved player pick and he looked like he was going to be an all-star this season, but he's starting to look like the Cade of old and the one that a lot of us thought we'd see this season, so shout out to him over there. Then over for Portland, Anthony Simons led them to a win without Damian Lillard over Houston. He had 30 points. He's such a great player. I think all of that experience he got last season where they were injured and they kind of just gave the ball to Simons and let him cook has gone a long way to him building his confidence and getting ready for this new role as their starting shooting guard. He's completely embraced it and looked phenomenal while doing it. Also, shout out to Shaedon Sharpe, who started tonight, and he looked really good in that role. Finally, I guess I'll talk about the Lakers a little bit. LeBron had a good game with 28, 7, and 5. Russell Westbrook came off the bench tonight in a move that feels like it's been coming for a while, but it finally happened, and it was surreal to see him not out there in the starting lineup. We'll see if that's a change going forward. They had no Anthony Davis in this game, and so overall, they caught the L, now falling to 0-5 on the season, one of their worst starts in franchise history, and it feels like if they don't make a trade pretty much by tomorrow, they're going to completely fall out of any type of contention because you can't lose a lot of ground in the West. It's really tough to come back from that, and they just look abysmal at this point. The Timberwolves completely destroyed them on the glass. Rudy Gobert in particular had 22 points and 21 boards. He was a monster. Anthony Edwards had 29 points. And Cat is the guy I really want to highlight because he had 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. His playmaking has been phenomenal for this team. His entry passes, his plays off the pick and roll, he's making all the right reads. He's doing exactly what they need him to do in kind of this more expanded playmaking role that he's been thrust into for this season. I love what I've seen from him so far. He's made a lot of great passes, a lot of great decisions, not as many bad ones, and I just really like what I've seen from him in that role. It's been cool to see. It's an interesting way that they're utilizing these two bigs, and it's been impressive. So shout out to Chris Finch for that game plan. That's all I'm going to say about tonight's games. Like I said, I missed out on a bunch of them being gone pretty much all day. So if I didn't talk about your favorite team, I apologize. I'll try and make it up to y'all in a later video. And go ahead and let me know any takeaways you had from your favorite team's games in the comment section below, as well as any takeaways you have from the season so far, anything about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Do you agree with me that they could be a top 3 seed heading into the playoffs this year? Or do you think I'm a bit overreactionary on their success so far? I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the videos. I will see y'all later. Real One Say It Back.